Welcome into the breakdown, brought to you by Bingham's Bourbon. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers and CJ Vogel. We're going to talk about the Longhorns today. They are now, Longhorns now a third of the way through the season. 4 games of a 12-game regular season schedule done. And we're going to try to break down where we think they are versus what the expectations were on both offense, defense, and in special teams as well. CJ, let's start with the offense right away and just get right into it, if you don't mind. Your thoughts on where the offense is compared to expectations 4 games in?
Well, it's certainly behind where expectations were. I don't think anybody can sit here having watched the 4 games and disagree with that. But again, following this game against Sam Houston State, the expectation that it's stepping in the right direction. And what I mean by this is I think we've seen this offense hit rock bottom those 2 weeks before. And that's a good thing. Of course, you're getting healthier, right? Trey Wisner returns. DeAndre Moore already back. We saw how much of an impact he can be for this offense as well. And that doesn't even include Emmett Mosley, who we have no idea what he can do, but we all think he's going to be a positive as well. So I do think this offense will get to a point where it's close to what we expected coming into the season, obviously through 4 weeks. It's not quite there. The explosivity at times has been there, and the run game maybe a little less than what we expected with a group of offensive linemen coming in with skill sets that one would anticipate being a little bit more towards opening holes, creating run lanes. But altogether, your pass protection's been solid, and you have a quarterback that can create with his legs. Ultimately, I think the identity of this offense has changed before our eyes over the first month, and that's to include the running of Arch Manning more and more. That'll be an identity moving forward into SEC play.
Rod, what do you think about the offense? I think it's underperformed to this point, expectations. I think that's clear, but what else would you add to that?
They're in terms of what CJ brought up, and I agree with them. They're looking for an identity, and when I think of an identity, it's what you do really well. What do you do as well, if not better than everybody else? What can you hang your hat on as an offense? And when I start looking at like some of the categories, right? Scoring offense, they're 60th, rushing offense, 37th, passing offense, 67th. The rushing game for Texas, considering what CJ just brought up, that now we know that Arch Manning's legs, Sark says they don't major in the quarterback run game. Well, now they definitely minor in it. They may be close to majoring in it pretty soon. But that fuses some juice into the run game. And if you get healthy, running backs, healthy Trey Wisner, healthy CJ Baxter back, you're on the verge. I always say elite is top 10. Great to me is top 20, top 25 in terms of your ranking in a specific area. And if you're looking about top 35, that means you're good. Top 50 to 60, you're above average, right? And Texas right now doesn't have really a category that they're really good in or elite in. But look at the running game and throw in Arch Manning's legs on top of that and the health of CJ Baxter, the health of Trey Wisner. If you get all 3 of those elements back healthy again, you went on the road at Ohio State and were able to run the football against one of the best defenses in the country and their place. Now, I think a lot of that was scheme, but you still ran successfully. I think Texas' run game could end up being what leads the way for this offense if all the pieces are healthy. Now, even if you don't have all the pieces, maybe one of those young bucks we've seen, a Clark or a Simon can step up in that role and add some more juice. Even Ryan Niblett now being thrown into the backfield a little bit. Seems like there's a lot they can do with the running game, and I think that's the closest area where they're right now closest to ascending into being good to great. And if you're good to great somewhere, that can be your identity. You can hang your hat on that.
Yeah, my thought on this, and just ask you, because I'm looking at just plain stats, number 43 overall in total offense, 438 yards a game. The problem I have with that is 3 of those have come against teams that aren't real good, frankly. Yeah. And so like a Florida State has almost 200 yards more per game right now than Texas. And I know, we're not judging ourselves against Florida State, et cetera. I just think that the offense, in my opinion, lacks firepower right now, maybe. And so maybe, Rod, to your point, they can be that running team that kind of, shortens games, plays keep away a little bit with a defense that certainly could be complementary in that regard. I'm concerned a little bit overall about the offense and the firepower. That has been a a point that I've thought about. They're 60 in scoring. You mentioned that. 37 in rush, 67 in passing offense. CJ, just circling back on that, what do you think it is that Texas is missing? Is it firepower? Is it leaning into a strength like the run game with Wisner and Baxter both being out so much? Where do you come out on that?
It's interesting with that run game. I think what we've seen through 4 weeks is just who they are. I don't know if your room for improvement is going to be as high as the passing side of the offense will be. I mean, you run for 166 against Ohio State, and after that, it was pretty choppy waters. And I still have the statistic. You haven't had a 20-yard rush from a running back in, 7 games, going back to Clemson of the round 1 of college football playoff a year ago. I know that's not the end-all, be-all stat, but those running lanes aren't as wide as I anticipated, especially against bad opposition up front, and especially against Sam Houston State, when you should have been able to drive trucks through those lanes, right? You had 40, 50 pounds across the board up front. So the concern is there, yet if you're able to sustain 8 to 9 to 10-yard runs, that helps your offense tremendously. And right now, that's kind of where Texas is. So you're not getting the home run ability in the run game right now, but you are getting singles and doubles, and ultimately those do come around to score. That's a good sign. What's going to be really interesting is how does the inclusion of Jack injuries continue to rise? Only 10 targets through the first 4 weeks. Texas tight ends have been great, right? We've seen Nick Townsend. Jordan Washington found the end zone a week ago. Mari Winston's had a few receptions. But Jack injuries is a guy for me that has a higher ceiling than the rest. How does he get involved in SEC play? That is how I think Texas can ultimately raise the ceiling of their offensive performance moving forward.
Can I just add to that really quickly? Because I agree. It's really interesting because last week versus Sam Houston State, they actually played like almost 60% 12 personnel. Played more 12 personnel than they did 11 personnel. Now, it could have been situation specific. Maybe it was because they wanted to really assert themselves in the running game, whatever it may be. I'm not sure exactly. It's happened a couple of times at the start, but not often. Or is it because, like we saw in the San Jose State game, where you played 5 tight ends and 4 tight ends had targets? Are we moving to an era in Sark's tenure here at Texas where now he's got the depth and the talent at tight end, and he wants to weaponize it, and you're going to see it now be utilized more and multiple threats in the passing game? I think everybody's pretty much been targeted except for Spencer Shannon, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, tight ends. So that's a good question. We'll see in Florida. We'll see at Florida. That will be the case.
Do y'all think it's Arch that's not dishing it out enough to the primary targets or well enough, or do you think it's a lack of playmakers on Texas offense that is potentially holding them back a little bit, or is it both? What do y'all think? I mean, there's no Jaden Blue, because I had this conversation with Jerry, right? There's no Jaden Blue. Jaden Blue scored 14 touchdowns last year. Matthew Golden was your receiver in the red zone, no doubt about it. I mean, the catch against Vanderbilt, the catch against Michigan, the catch against Arkansas. I mean, he was tremendous in the red zone, right? Do you think that it's both? Do you think it's one more than the other, or where do you think it comes out as far as playmakers versus play by the quarterback? I guess
it's definitely both, right? The weeks 2 and 3, even the first 3 quarters of Ohio State, you're looking at the quarterback saying, "Are we playing skee ball? Are we at the arcade right now collecting tokens?" Because each ball was hitting the ground, very early in front of intended wide receivers. And even against Sam Houston State, it started off that way in the sense it was like, oh boy, is this where things are going again? Now Arch found his rhythm. He found a groove, ends up completing his final 13 passes, 3 of which ended up scoring. So he's finding rhythm there, and that's encouraging. But on top of that, I don't know if Texas had the necessary weapons out there, right? It was Ryan Wingo, who obviously we've talked about it. The disconnect there was widely publicized. And then it was Parker Livingston, who, credit to Parker, he was the one guy out there that was making plays, again, because there was a bit of a lack of inclusion of Jack injuries. And that's really kind of perplexed me, but also kind of enticed me moving forward. How can he raise the ceiling, as I was talking about? But altogether, I think if you're going to get an Arch Manning, like what we saw against Sam Houston State, Texas is going to need to include DeAndre Moore much more, because I don't trust anything beyond those 3 that we just mentioned at wide receiver until I see Emmett Mosley with my own eyes.
Yeah. Rod, what do you think? Is it more Arch or is it more lack of playmakers? I mean, look, they lifted him up against Sam Houston State now. DeAndre Moore went and got that low ball.
They did.
Ryan Wingo tracked the deep ball. I felt like they lifted him up a little bit. What do you think?
I think you're right about that. I think ultimately there has been a little trouble with the chemistry, obviously, with Ryan Wingo and Arch Manning. And I think that maybe that connection now has, been cultivated now after the Sam Houston State game. I'm not sure. It is clear the wide receivers at times have had some trouble getting on the same page with Arch, or maybe I say Arch getting on the same page with the wide receivers. So
it could be either way, right? Yeah.
So I'm gonna say I underestimated that. I didn't think that would be as big of an issue considering Arch has been here for a while with those guys, at least practicing behind the scenes. But that's something I think that over time, more reps, that'll get better. Hopefully that is the case after we saw their performance versus Sam Houston State. And I will say that for Sark, I think Sark's got to get to the staples in his offense, the core concepts in his offense that are just most compatible with Arch and what Arch does well, and get back to repping those over and over and over and over and over again. And I think whether that's, straight drop back situations, whether that's more play action over the RPOs, whether that's moving the pocket because he throws the ball really well on the run. And even Sark, I think Sark likes the fact that he takes shots early with Arch because he knows Arch's deep ball, completing over 50% of his 20-plus yard passes. He wants to make sure that that's a major weapon in the offense early and often in the offense. So I just think that's part of it too, that Sark really hasn't been able to, in my opinion, effectively be able to calm him down in a crisis, because we haven't seen that, and get him in a rhythm when he's out of rhythm. Now, Sam Houston State, different discussion, open book test. But I think for all those elements, Sark is a play caller for the receivers in the passing game and for Arch overall. None of those elements, in my opinion, have been in sync all at the same time. It'll come. Hopefully, you see it on the road at Florida. But we hadn't seen it all, I think, come together at one time, in my opinion, that synchronicity.
All right. Hey, Rod, before we go to defense, will you tell folks out there about our friend Ryan Bingham at Bingham's Bourbon?
Of course, thank you to Ryan Bingham and Bingham's Bourbon for sponsoring On Texas Football, created by Grammy and Oscar-winning artist Ryan Bingham. For years, Ryan turned down offers to just put his name on any bottle of bourbon. No, he insisted that he wanted a bourbon he could be proud of, one that stayed true to his Texas roots and where the music comes from. That's why he built Bingham's from the ground up, a Texas certified whiskey distilled and aged in the searing Texas climate for a bold, unmistakable flavor from the hands of local Texas farmers to the barrel, to the glass. Every drop is a tribute to the land, the craft, and the people who shape it. Bingham's Bourbon, proof that Texas makes a damn good bourbon. Available now across Texas. You can find details at binghamspirits.com. That's binghamspirits.com.
I love it. Appreciate him sponsoring us here at On Texas Football. Rod and CJ, the next question I had was about the defense. And Rod, you're a former defensive player, so I'll start with you. Living up to their ability, living up to their ranking and thoughts in the preseason, I look at the numbers, number 4 in scoring defense, number 6 in rush defense, number 10 in pass defense, number 9 in third down defense, number 5 in total defense. Some of the advanced metrics also very favorable for the Longhorns. I guess there's no question about it that at least to this point, Texas has lived up to what they thought the defense was going to be at this point.
I agree with you. I think if you want to be nitpicky, you can be nitpicky, and we often can do that here. Maybe you wanted to see more splash plays from the pass rush, but last week you got 5 sacks and 10 tackles for loss. So maybe that's starting to heat up a little bit more too. I don't have many plays. The red zone defense, you don't often see it, but maybe that's something also if you're being nitpicky, you can throw out there. Red zone defense. There have been certain players in the secondary that have been targeted. I think Jalen Gilbo's been targeted a little bit at times. Grayson Wilson, of course, any true freshman on any defense, any time you see a true freshman on the field, they're going to get picked on. So he's been picked on. That's not a criticism. He's been fantastic. As a matter of fact, I expect him to be a freshman All-American this year, or at least a candidate for it. So, yeah, if you want to be nitpicky, there are some things you can get at. And I don't know if they've truly been tested just yet, because Ohio State was very conservative with the game plan for a young Julian Sand. A lot of 12 personnel, a lot of short underneath intermediate throws. I think you'll get tested. I don't know if you'll be tested much by DJ Lagway if he's playing the way we've seen him play early this year. But at one point this year, they're going to be tested by a high-level QB. And if John Mateer's not playing, that also goes that test too. So at one point this year, Texas defense will be tested by a high-level quarterback, and that hadn't happened just yet. Julian Sanders playing at a high level now, but when they played Texas, they had a pretty much elementary game plan for him, which he executed flawlessly, and he was great. But they didn't ask a lot from him to test this Texas defense. I think someone at one point will try to test this Texas defense, and then we'll see if truly they're up to the task. But I do believe they will be.
What about you, CJ?
Yeah, they've definitely lived up to expectations, and I still think there's plenty of meat on the bone. Of course, we've talked about maybe a lack of sacks considering where this pass rush kind of came into the season with the hype, yet still ranked top 20 in the country in sacks through 4 weeks. What we've known about this Pete Kwiatkowski defense is they can take the football away, they're great on 3rd and 4th downs, and they ultimately get quick stops to allow the offense back on the field. That's a big part of their complementary football that we hear so much about from Steve Sarkisian. A couple stats to back that up. Points per drive, Texas defensively is 5th in the entire country, 0.59 points allowed per drive. That's tremendous. Doesn't matter who you're playing. That is a great mark. That's where you want to be. On 3rd down, Texas ranks 9th this year, allowing just 23.6% of 3rd downs. Again, fantastic. And it gets even better on 4th downs. I'm not sure if we've publicly talked about this enough, guys, but Texas defensively has allowed just 1 out of their 9 4th down attempts. That's 8.
Wow.
That's 8 takeaways that aren't necessarily included as turnovers, but that's just giving your offense the ball in great field position to go score once again. That is great right there. On top of that, look, 10 turnovers already through 4 weeks. I know you haven't played the hottest competition so far, but right now that Texas defense is flying around, and I still think that there's plenty of room for this team to improve moving forward as well.
Where does that improvement come from, Rod and CJ? Just more players getting older, more Lance Jackson, more Justice Terry, more Josiah Sharma, Ty Anthony Smith, guys, Cade Phillips getting in the action, or is there something else that I'm missing? Where do they improve, I guess, in that category to leave it on the bone? Because I will say one stat that does stick out to me, 11.5 sacks, I believe, or 11 sacks this year. They've come from 10 different players.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that tells you the depth that we're dealing with across a number of positions. What are you saying, Rod? Where's the meat left on the bone, to CJ's point?
I think it might be with PK. I think PK scheme-wise can be a little bit more aggressive. I think he can throw out some more exotic looks. And we saw a little bit of it actually versus Sam Houston State. If you look at the pass rush snaps or percentage of pass rush snaps where Anthony Hill was used as a pass rusher. Go look at some of the simulated pressures they're starting to use. If he can't blitz, you'll see him use a simulated pressure where he'll send 4 guys, but you never know which 4 guys he's gonna send. It looks like a blitz, smells like a blitz, but it's actually just a pressure. A blitz is when you send at least 5 guys. So I think there's some more unique ways where he can weaponize all those different pieces of talent, all those different I think very unique players. Like you're talking about Lance Jackson out there, and now you're talking about guys like Ty Anthony Smith, younger players who've started to assert themselves. I think there are some different packages and some different personnel groupings that you can use defensively that may be able to utilize that personnel a little bit better.
All right. Let's talk last about special teams. Mason Shipley hasn't missed a kick this year.
Yeah.
Jack Bomeister, except for one game, has looked as good or better than advertised, I think. Ryan Niblett has been a plausible replacement, at least, especially after Sam Houston State at punt returner. Kick return doesn't look great. What do y'all think about special teams? Is there still meat left on the bone there too, CJ?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think you got to start with Ryan Niblett because that's where a lot of the explosive plays, right? Texas now top 10 and punt return yards. They have 3 of 20 plus returns. That's great, but there's still more opportunities there. And, I still think at times Texas is allowing punts to hit the ground where they shouldn't be hitting the ground. Obviously, Ryan Niblett also had a muffed punt against Sam Houston State. That would have been a pretty unfortunate turnover after one of the 6 3-and-outs there. So you can clean that up. And I do think that the blocking scheme on those punt returns has been set up very well. So it leads me to think who else could do this job. So I do think that needs to be cleaned up moving forward again, because a quick turnover on punts is immediate points given where that punt would be recovered by an opposing team. But seeing kicks go through the upright, I think for all of us is a welcome sight. And that has been very much a step in the right direction. I'll also say this. I'm waiting for Texas to really start bringing the heat on some field goal attempts. They've been very fortunate this year in terms of not facing very many great kickers, but getting Ethan Burke up there. Obviously, we saw a Levon Johnson or a Murad Watson, someone early in the year was able to get a hand on a or according to Sark in fall camp, was able to get a hand on a field goal attempt. Who else can be your field goal blockers? We haven't seen a whole lot of that, and I think that's going to be something that we see them dig deep into their bag of tricks for whenever SEC play fully gets going in the coming weeks.
I got to say this. I think special teams, just as we talked about this from the outset, offense behind schedule, in our opinion, defense on schedule. Special teams, I think, is a little ahead of schedule. Just personal opinion. They've got good kicker, good punter, decent return game. I'm not saying it's perfect, but maybe a little ahead of schedule for where I thought they would be this time. They're better than last year, in my opinion, in those categories.
Yeah,
but, I'll say this just real quick: kick return game, something we haven't seen at all of, and they haven't had many of opportunities, but not a single return over 30 yards. Again, not many opportunities, but if that's an area where you're looking to really gain some explosive plays or momentum switches, the kick return game needs to be one that shows up moving forward.
And they need fewer penalties on special teams. I think maybe moving Warren Roberson off of the punt return unit might do that for them, though. Yeah, because he was the culprit of a lot of those. All right, that's going to do it for today's Bingham's Bourbon Breakdown. Thank you to CJ Vogel. Thank you to Rod Babers. Thank you to Ryan Bingham. By the way, this is fun. Tomorrow night, Ryan Bingham is in San Luis Obispo. Okay, he's going to be all the way out in California, but then he travels across the country. Guys, he's going to be at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor on Saturday. I guess the Wolverines don't have a home game this weekend. So, anyways, good luck to Ryan as he goes across the country. All right, for CJ, Rod, and our producer Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good one. Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em.